Well, we have Stephanie Dobson joining us once again. Stephanie is a collaborative lawyer, mediator, and educator with Henke Divorce Law and Mediation offices in Lloydminster and Edmonton. Stephanie, thanks for joining me once again.
Thanks again for having me, Stacey.
We are continuing our theme of division of property, and today we're going to talk about employment pension plans. Obviously, this can be a very contentious issue, especially if people have been together for a long time. So when people are separating and they have a pension, where do you start with this to go through and make sure that everybody gets what they're supposed to get?
Well, first, this is a huge topic. And so we're going to break this down into a couple of weeks because I figured that there was so many things to talk about that we may need a little bit longer. So we'll just go through some of the basics today. So first, when we're looking at pension plans, we need to look at what type of pension plan people may have. Now, when we say the word pension, our viewers may think of a couple of different kinds of pension. They may think of their government pension, like CPP, or OAS, or they might think of their employment pension. So in today's episode, as you said, Stacey, we're going to be focusing in on employment pensions because they're actually considered to be family property and divisible along with other forms of family property. Now, we are going to focus in another session, another episode on CPP credits specifically, but today's employment. So within that employment pension, there's two different kinds of employment pensions. One is called a defined benefit pension plan, and one is called a defined contribution pension plan. So first, under the defined benefit pension plan, this is a pension where you're guaranteed a certain amount of income to you upon retirement. Now, these ones are based on formulas guaranteed by the employer, and there are things that affect those formulas, things like length of employment, salary during your employment, age, and of course, there's many other factors. Now, a defined contribution pension plan is much like a registered retirement savings plan, an RRSP, where there's contributions made by a person during their employment. So that might be employee-only contributions. That might be a combination of employee and employer contributions. But in the end, there's no formula to this. It's just contributions plus growth. We hope growth over time. So we have to figure out, of course, the value of that pension plan, whether it's defined benefit or defined contribution. We have to figure that out as we go through the separation.
Okay, and how does the value of the employment pensions get determined? I'm guessing it's a little bit more complicated than we might think.
Now, of course, it's going to depend on the type of pension that we're talking about. So let's go in reverse order this time. So let's start with the easy one, which is the defined contribution pension plan. So this is the one I said is similar to an RRSP. So to value this defined contribution pension plan, you're simply going to go to the financial advisor, who is the one who holds these pension plans. For example, if you're a Synovus employee, you might go to Sun Life, where they have their employee pensions, and there will be certain intervals, where you'll get your statements. So it might be annually, it might be quarterly or monthly, and then your divorce professional will tell you the date range that they need. So they might need 2 quarters worth of statements, for example. Then let's go to the more challenging one. So the defined benefit pension plan. So in order to value this pension, there's a starting point of how to value them, but it's only a starting point is the one I want to emphasize here. So the first starting point is to request a pension estimate from your pension administrator. So how you do this is going to vary from pension to pension. And I always recommend that you do an online search for the pension name, and you can come up with a set of instructions on how to actually get that value. Now, on our website, we've actually created in our resources section some links to some of the common pensions, and you can get that information there. But usually when you're filling out that form, one of the things you need to pay attention to is what's called a period of joint accrual. That is the start date and the end date for the value that you're requesting. So you might need to get some advice on what that start and end date should be, but basically that's one thing you might have to look out for on the form.
So once you've received this pension value estimate, is it as simple as just putting, a number on a form, or is there a little bit more to it?
Well, guess what? It's more complicated than it may first appear. So the number that you get on that form is not necessarily an exact value. That is your pension administrator's estimate based on their own set of criteria and assumptions. And it's meant to just be an estimate. So I highly recommend that when there is that defined benefit pension plan, that you actually get a pension actuary, which is a pension valuator, to value that pension to make sure that the value that we're putting on it for the purpose of division of your property when you separate, to make sure that that number is accurate. Now, the important thing here is that even if your pension administrator has valued your pension at 200,000 and your pension valuator, the actual actuary that you've paid to get this valuation, says that your pension is worth 250,000, sometimes there will be limitations on how much you can actually transfer to the other spouse, even if it's, if the pension valuator and the pension administrator actually value it differently.
Okay, well, once again, Stephanie, a lot of good information, and also why we're going to be, also why we're going to be continuing this theme throughout the rest of the month, so we can dig into a little bit deeper. So thank you so much for joining me, Stephanie, and we'll be back again next week.
Thanks, Stacey.